I was sitting here and I wanted to talk about behind the scenes of quantum leaping your healing heart. I was going to record a podcast, and then I realized I can go hang out with you here in this space while I have a coffee and have an honest conversation and just riff on how it is, because this is the question I get asked almost daily in my DMs or from my friends or from my family. It's just like, how do I move past this pain faster? How do I get rid of it? How do I... Ugh. It's heavy, it's hard, right? And it makes sense that the human wants to escape it. But if we're bypassing the emotions and the lessons and the things like that, we end up repeating it. That's how trauma works, right? If we don't learn the lesson in the season that we're in, we often will find ourselves repeating these things in different chapters and different people and different places and different circumstances until it finally moves through our body. But there are things that we can do to move through it. I mean, this is my own experience. This is from science. This is from soul. This is from my own journey of things that I've applied over the years. But we're all looking for like this, like how, and putting a lot of this, can I have this 3-step formula to healing my heart? Can I have this 5-step plan of getting my ex back? How do I, like, what's the 6-step formula for getting over my breakup? It's like, there's not really one. And everything else is just selling you shit on the internet, to be honest. But there are some things when we look at a healing heart, what we can do, and I will give you my own experience on that. Take it or leave it as you want. That's how the internet works. I'm going to tell you some things that I use with science and trauma background, and hey. From a trauma background, I'm going to use some things from my own personal experience, because if you are new here, hi. I went through a breakup about 6 months ago. And it was one of those breakups where I had done that healing work for like 2 years. I got myself out of domestic violence. I had gotten myself off of drugs. I had healed what I thought codependency. I thought, okay, I've done enough healing and done all this like soul work. I've done this independence work. I've done it all. I am ready for my knight in shining armor. And oh my goodness, I'm alive and well. And I met someone. And that person came into my life, and it was a really good love. It was a really good love for about a year and a half. And then he came to me and he was like, hey, I can't help this feeling I've had inside of me. Everything about you I love, but yet I really want to be with a Latin woman. And I share this story. You can go through my page. I share this whole story in my own becoming because of this. And most people get irritated by a statement like that. But for me, it was such a growth. It was such an initiation from God. It was such a portal of activation over these last 6 months that I'm so excited to share inside of Sacred Singlehood. But it's one of those things, and I am a trauma specialist. I am a relationship specialist, and this is just one of those things. And this is why people come and they ask, hey, how do I quantum leap my healing heart? And I get you. And I really do. These last 6 months is the proudest I've been. The women that have come into my world, people that had to, stop working for months on end when they had their heart broken, are able to lead themselves and start new businesses and jump into different promotional activities, be able to have conversations with their kids so that they don't repeat cycles. Like, what I realize in this lifetime is that it's not just for us when we're going through something. When we really lead ourselves through it as if our life is a piece of art, how do we want to tell this story? Everything during those moments, your knees on the floor, everything so heavy, all these kind of things, everything changes. And let me know if this lands for you. This chat box while I'm here is open. If you're listening to this in the podcast form, you can email us. But let me know how this lands for y'all, because this stuff makes me feel so tender. And the reason I brought all of this up, 1, because I get asked this every day. 2, because I have been feeling heavy. So I just went on a month-long journey of celebrating coming into my 30s. I honestly didn't think I'd make it to 30, so I went all in, and I'm claiming big things for you guys. Like, it was all about healing in my 20s, and now it's about making an iconic movement in my 30s. And it's like this emotional hangover type thing. It's this like there's just a lot of lessons that have been coming through from this 6-month period. And I feel like this last month has been a lot of integrating these things and looking at things and understanding these things. And I was talking to one of my friends, and if you don't know, if you're not into astrology, it is eclipse season and Scorpio, the rebirth, all the kind of things that are going on. And I was feeling this and I know this and what have you, but I was like, what the fuck is going on with my body? Like, there's that difference. There's a difference when I'm feeling anxiety and I'm feeling low. I first look at my nutrition, because that's my background. Pre-relationship stuff, I was an IBS anxiety specialist. I still do utilize that. You're going to hear that in this talk. But I still do utilize that. So I look at, blood sugar levels, sleep, all that kind of stuff, like what's going on. And then there's this aspect of healing where it's like, this isn't me. Like, all of this stuff, like what's going on. And I look to the moon. And I like to always blame the moon for my emotions sometimes. So not always. Sometimes I like to do that. And so I asked my astrology friends, hey, what the fuck is going on? And had them look at my chart. And she had brought up to me that last eclipse season was April 30th. Me and my partner closed on April 29th. And so all these feelings have been coming up for me of abandonment and rejection and fear of being self and self-abandonment and things like that. Now that I'm stepping into potentially a new relationship and things like that clenchy stuff, like all of that stuff was coming up. And I was like, what the fuck? I thought I'd be healed. Like, what? And let me know if you've ever felt this, because I shared this in my post recently where it was like, no one talks about how dating after heartbreak, like, I feel like we don't talk about it enough. We talk about dating, we talk about getting back out there and, red flags and things that look like that. But like, what about looking at, how am I going to trust myself to fall for another? How can I trust myself that I'm not going to be too much for them, or that they can hold me? And so all these things were coming up. And she's like, babe, when was your breakup? And I was like, oh, the 29th. And she's like, oh, last eclipse season was the 30th. So that makes so much fucking sense. And so if you're feeling a lot of emotions, look at what was happening 6 months ago for you. What was going on? What cycles are repeating itself? And you can kind of start to dive into that stuff. Like I said, I love astrology. It might not be your jam, but if you're in my page, I'm assuming it is. Because like attracts like. And so I started to look at these things, right? Looking at, okay, what's coming up for me? Why are these things coming up for me? How can I revisit this? And really, what have I done over the last 6 months? Why have I been able to, start a new business, create these cultivating events, sell out these things, find someone new to date, like, when before that would take years for me? Like, what really did go on? How can I share this with you? And one of the first things that came fresh to me was I understood the science. It wasn't just, hey, let me look at how many days should I go without talking to them? Or, how long is it until I go on my next date? How da-da-da-da-da-da. A thing for me, and you guys will see this inside of Sacred Singlehood, because I do use a lot of science. Something that sets you free is understanding who the fuck you are and how you work outside of emotions, because our emotions are based on all the memories of our past. Right now, who you are is 95% of a cellular memory of who you have always been. So when we're sitting here and we're lost in these thoughts of, I know what I want, and this is what and we're putting all these kind of things and rules in place, like, you know what you want based on your life experiences of the past or the things that you've been told. You actually don't know. This is why I love mentorship. This is why I love high-level containers, because you get to see a new reality of life that you might not even be open to. Because sometimes we see things in, like, movies and whatever, and it's like, oh, that's cute for the movie, but that, like, doesn't happen for people like me. And then you're in these containers with people, whether it's a program, whether it's a masterclass, whether it's a mastermind, or one-on-one, like, and you hear their stories, and then you hear what's actually happening behind the scenes that you can't get through social media, that you can't get through these, like, one-off things. Although I love them, that's why I do it, but there's just so much that you can't get in these things. And you learn, and then you start to reprogram your nervous system and do things around that thing. And then you start to understand yourself a little bit more. And so for me, I guess that's two things in that statement. Whoops. One is understanding myself, understanding the science behind what's going on with your brain, your body, your soul, all the kind of things, like the activating systems, the attachment styles, the codependency, the way the brain works, and the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex, like understanding your blood sugar levels and your metabolism, and how all of that has to do with a breakup that is so wildly unspoken about when it comes to healing your heart. If your body is dysregulated, you're not eating enough, or you're eating too much, or you're not sleeping enough, or you're drinking too much, and all the kind of things that happen after a breakup. And it doesn't even have to be a romantic partner. It could be a family thing. It could be a relationship thing. It could be a money thing. It could be a technology. It could be a coworker. We have heartaches that dampen our shine in so many different capacities. It's not just limited to a romantic partner. And then we understand the science of what's going on. Like, how is my nervous system being activated right now? Why is my nervous system being activated right now? These tendencies, these reactive systems, these anxious attachment styles, like, what's going on here? And then you're able to look at yourself through a lens of permission and understanding. That is the only aspect of freedom that I've ever come to know. Because a lot of the times we're looking for freedom outside of ourselves. When I hit X, I will have Y. No. It's when you decide what's going on with you right now and taking the time to understand that, it's really when you set yourself free. Oh, I'm in my sympathetic nervous system right now, or I'm in my dorsal phase right now. Like, I understand when I'm in these phases, and therefore knowing how to get yourself out of them helps you quantum leap your healing. But we're not bypassing things. We're not living in the narrative of our emotions. We're not bypassing or escalating. Is adding up in my mind and thoughts, making quite a bit more clear. Oh, Cami, I'm happy that that's something. Let me know if there's any questions. I know I tend to speak fast. And so looking at, okay, I'm not going to let my mind, because what happens with our mind and our body, and why it's so freeing when we understand it, is because our body feels so many things throughout a day. Our body is this brilliant tool that will constantly keep us protected. That's its job. That is the job of our amygdala and our brain and all the kind of things. It's just trying to keep us alive and healthy, right? And our body will feel things, and then our brain does the human thing of, when did I last feel this? And it creates this narrative of, oh, last time I felt this was then when my mom did this, or my partner did this, or my dad did this, or my sibling did this, or my old friends did this. Therefore, this must mean ... And we get lost in that. And instead, you can understand when your body is feeling something. You can feel when your body is feeling something. You can, some practices in Sacred Singlehood as I walk you through each phase of the nervous system, so that you can identify when you're in public places and things like that. So you're not actually activating the story. You're just releasing the emotion, which is freedom. So that you no longer are feeling, oh, I'm feeling this, therefore that must mean that. And this is what helps when we're moving into the next phase of dating, right? As well, like, oh, and this is how we don't bring our garbage or our baggage into the next chapter of dating. We bring conscious conversation. That's what freedom is. That's how we set other people free, and we don't keep passing around trauma, right? And so understanding self, understanding the science, what's going on in your body when you're going through heartbreak, is hands down the number one thing that I've done to help, like, behind the scenes of quantum leaping a healing heart and being able to set yourself free, because it's no longer activating these strategies. It's like, let me understand my attachment style. Oh, this is happening right now. I'm trying to activate them in my nervous system. What else? What need isn't getting met here, so that I can create a different narrative in my body and set them free? And it sounds so logical, but if you're trying to fight emotion with emotion, you're not going to win. And if we're trying to fight a healing heart with only emotion, this is why we get trapped in these cycles of repeating themselves. This is why I am obsessed with Sacred Singlehood, because I've never seen anything like it. No matter how many years I did therapy or how many programs I've been in, it was like I'm fighting this battle with only emotion and spirituality. When yes, there is such a fucking place for all that, and y'all know I literally just talked about the moon in the beginning of this. Like, I am so about it. And there's the human, right? Sometimes we get so caught up in the spiritual realm we forget the human. And sometimes we get so caught up in the origin story in therapy. This is why it's not that I bash on therapy. I love therapy. My therapist and all the kind of things in my lifetime have been amazing. But what I found was I wasn't feeling safe in the present moment. I would then leave therapy and I'd be so fucking activated. And I'm like, why isn't this working for me? Am I broken? What's wrong? Ugh. Like, I've been in all of the chapters of healing that you've been in. Of second guessing, of bargaining, of, contemplating and replaying everything in our brains, and how can I get them back, or where did I go wrong, and what can I do next, and like, blaming, victim, like, there's so much that happens in the process, and I've walked through all of it, but really what has set me free is understanding this is the cornerstone, understanding how do I support my body in the process of healing my heart first, and then moving into how can I understand what's going on to create some certainty and uncertainty and start to move through this process. Because like I said, I don't even know if I said this, I just say it so much in my mastermind, like there's no wrong way of doing this other than bypassing. Like if you were bypassing, even that I wouldn't even say is wrong, because sometimes like I would set containers for myself, because if I would just kind of get bogged down by my sadness or whatever, like I'm very emotional, things like that, but like I would set containers for myself to just be like, this is what I'm feeling and da 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 da, but like then I'm moving on with my day. Like I don't have fucking time. I'm gonna go dance, I'm gonna go play, I literally would stay out dancing till like 4 a.m. in the beginning, like in a healthy way, but like that was my choice, and sometimes people might not fucking get on with that. I don't really care. Like that is how I did it, because that's how my body wanted to express through dancing and movement and things of that nature. But like even that was intentional. So I guess to even go back, can you tell I'm a self-projector as I process all this stuff? As I go back, like even the quote unquote bypassing was like it wasn't because it was intentional, right? So there's no wrong way of doing a healing heart. It's really, I guess like the cornerstone of it all would be like, give yourself permission that you're not gonna fuck this up. There's literally no way that you could fuck it up if you're making it intentional. The only way that you can ever fuck it up is if you're trying to continually outsource your happiness outside of yourself, and you're continually out seeking others and things of that nature, and thinking the next person that comes in your life is going to be the person that fixes you. No one can fucking do that, and that's a lot of fucking pressure on that person. And that's why I see a lot of relationships not work, because we are so caught up. Disney really fucked us on this, we're so caught up on our one person being our one, and we're so lost in this idea of somehow they have to be everything for me. And it's not true. That's a lot of pressure. You get to be the person that is radically responsible and taking ownership over your healing. Okay? Another thing I did is I stopped focusing on so many sources of information. I stopped looking at this mentor and this program and this podcast and this audiobook and this. I am turned on by long-term commitment. That is something that turns me on. I am with my mentor now. We are going on 2 years. I saw her. She went through her breakup. That's literally what turned me on about her before I even went through my breakup. I was with her for 6 months, and then this happened, and literally people in our mastermind and our we've all gone through ruptures in our relationships right now, because we're all really scaling at quantum speed, whether it's in our health, wealth, and relationships. And I stuck with that. Instead of doing this kind of getting to know people, kind of letting them in and then moving on to the next thing, I know in my life right now, I want long-term. I want long-term containers. I want long-term commitment. I want a partner that's long-term. All the kind of things. So I committed to myself and that thing, and I stopped getting so confused by everyone's different opinions. And instead of focusing on people's opinions or whatever, or strategies, or how it's supposed to be done and do this one thing to get them back kind of things, it really was just, there's a need. There was a need my partner had given me, right? Certainty. I was certain he would be there. And then stepping into this new, if you haven't looked at Tony Robbins' 6 Human Needs, go look that up. But he was giving me this certainty, and then I was in this portal of uncertainty, and I literally was like lost. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I have all these tools and things like that, but what the fuck? And instead of drowning in that, I cultivated a new experience of certainty, right? I started to look at different things. Like, yes, I can do that in myself, but the way we learn how to self-regulate is through co-regulation. That's how we learned as children. So when we're in distress, the best way to do this is not codependently like leaking onto other people, but doing it from a conscious conversation standpoint and finding places to hold you and that to help regulate you. There's a phrase that I always say with my mentor, with my partners, with my best friends, with my sister: can I borrow the way that you see me right now? That's how I co-regulate, and that's how I've really kind of cultivated deep depth within my relationships, because one, I get to see how they view me, two, I get to borrow that and regulate myself around that. So in a less codependent way, but at the same time, there's healthy codependence. Like, everyone thinks, oh, I don't want to be a burden on other people. So how are you supposed to heal in these spaces? How are you supposed to stand in these portals and really start to change and reprogram and all these kind of things if you're silently doing it by yourself? How are you supposed to borrow the way people see you? Because then we do this thing where it's like, oh, I've been studying all this stuff and doing it, and I did this. Let me take a sip of my coffee really quick. I did this where it was like, for 2 years, I built this cocoon around myself, and I'm happy that I did that, because I learned so much, and now have been able to use the things to quantum heal, and now I teach it in Sacred Singlehood. But I took this space and studied and did all these kind of things, and then wasn't applying it because I wasn't in containers that were triggering me. And there's not to say there's a good or a bad way of healing or anything like that. It's just figuring out, how do you want to do it right now? Like, what is your value right now? Like, your number one value. Is that doing that? And then with that value, do you do that single, or do you do that in the relationship with others? Right? I'm happy I had those moments by myself for 2 years, but I realized, and I've made the choice, my value is connection. My value is to work on, yes, my naturally anxious attachment style, which is being alone, but to let people actually see who I am. To get myself off this internal authority pedestal that I thought I had to be on, and all these kind of things where people can't see you cry, and I was raised on the concept of honey over vinegar, and I wanted to open my heart, right? So letting that open into my friendships. I wasn't yet ready to date. I did start dating quite quickly, but I'll talk to you guys about that as well. But I leaned into my best friend. I leaned into my mastermind and my mentor. I leaned into the first round of Sacred Singlehood. I moved into these spaces, right, to cultivate a new sense of certainty, because I knew that need still needed to be met. What can I be totally certain of? And how can I let myself be surprised? That duality of life is the juiciest thing that you can ever dance within. How can I create certainty so my nervous system feels safe? Because right now it's a little bit chaotic, and what do I need? That's where routines come in through. That's where people come in, all that kind of thing. And where can I let myself be surprised? I quantum leaped in my healing, because if I look at my relationship and I looked at the year and whatever, because I had done healing, and because I'm in this healing space, and all the kind of rules they all put, and how you're supposed to do it, and you're not allowed to drink, and you gotta go to sleep at this time, and all the kind of rules. Like, I said, fuck all of that. That was keeping my life so certain. I knew, if you knew me at the time of my breakup, like even after my breakup, my friends that I met when I moved to Dallas, they're like, who are you? You are so fun. And I'm like, this is who I've always been. I was just so afraid of her. Like, I was clutching for the need of certainty so hard that no matter what time of the day, you could have guessed where I was. Now, there's routine for sure, because I know that keeps my nervous system safe, but more so I lean into the aspect of, how can I be surprised? That's literally my alarm clock when I wake up in the morning. How can life surprise me today? And so some days I was in my burrito days, and I was healing, and I was doing the shadow work, and I was doing this anger releasing, and I was doing, all the kind of studying and the tools, and I was letting myself follow my heart and feel everything. In other days, I was out dancing and laughing and playing and starting to really live life again. Really, not to show anyone, not to meet anyone, not to do anything. I wanted to rediscover who the fuck I was. And so when you're going through these portals, and a big question I had asked myself, because I had prayed for this, right? Like, I had shot up a prayer, God, give me the death I need to rise to my highest potential. And when I prayed that, Something happened in October and I forgot it. And I ignored it. I said, no, God, not that. And I prayed it again. And this breakup finally went through. And so I knew it was an invitation. I knew it was initiation, and I treated it as such. Hence, sacred singlehood. This chapter has been revolutionary. It's changed my life. It changed hundreds of women. Like, I can't tell you the impact my heartbreak gets to have, and it's not even just this, it's planting the seeds for year to come. Like, I already know that. That's why I'm being so intentional with it. That's why I'm sharing it so openly, because it's basically like my magazine on the fucking internet that I get to go back to. Like, it gets to be this space of where do I get to be surprised, and what impact do I want to make, and how sacred do I get to make this mean, and how beautiful do I get to make this be. And this is the third thing, is I started to like really look at the difference between self-worth and self-value, right? Like, going through something like a breakup, whether it's short, long, whatever, friendship, family, business, it really challenges your self-worth. It really challenges it, because you're so used to being validated by this person, being safe with this person, being able to fully express yourself with this person. So what's my value? What's my worth? And the thing that shook me alive is he never held that, but I gave him that. And maybe you can look at your life in this way as well, where it's like, do you put too much of your worth in your work? Do you put too much of your value in how often people invite you to things, or how your body looks, or things like how much money you have in your bank account, or how much, clothes you have in your closet, or what size your body is? Like, do you put your, what is this dot on my face? There we go. Are you putting your worth? Because we gauge our value, or we gauge our worth on our value on our worth, right? And so we're looking at all of these things outside of ourselves, and how can you bring that in? What in your life, again, going back to, what are your values about yourself? How do you start to feel really fucking good in your skin, your time, your space, the way you activate your voice, the way that you dress your body, like the way that you feel? Like, where can you do that? And the more that you start to honor that, the more that you keep yourself accountable in that, of what you show up to, or who you surround yourself with, what conversations you have, what things you invest yourself into, your time, your space, your money, like, that indicates your worth, no? But sometimes we do this thing where it's like, I want my life to look like this, and yet we're not sitting on the fence. Like, we're not getting off the fence. We're just doing the same thing, expecting a different result. And then we listen to a little podcast like this, and not to say I don't love it, but like, there's so much more. There's so much more. And so how can we start to really shift the self-worth, self-value conversation? Where can we start to shift the depth of our self-value, of our purpose, instead of just chasing this happiness and am I being chosen and da 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 da? Where can we start to really elevate this? Take radical ownership, look at it, spend time looking at it, right? Without looking at through a lens of criticism. And like, the one thing, like, we have activating strategies and we have brakes in our nervous system. So things that are like, wee, and turn us on. And then there's things that turn us off. Think of it like a light switch. Self-criticism is one of the fastest ways you can put the brakes on in your nervous system. You can think of this like when you're having sex. Like, why all of a sudden, like, I'm all of a sudden turned off and like things aren't working and da 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 da. Like, I'm manifesting, I'm cruising, I'm doing these. Like, we have these light switches that happen in our body. Self-criticism is one of the fastest way to turn that light switch off. And then we also do this thing where it's like, I'm self-criticizing, and then I'm criticizing myself about self-criticizing. Like, don't get caught up in that mess. Give yourself compassion, being like, I am safe. I am loved. I'm a walking and living sanctuary. I'm a badass bitch. Whatever the fuck it is that turns you the fuck on again, without that self-deprecating thought of, I'm not worthy, I'm unlovable, all the kind of things we get wrapped inside of. Like, really looking at these things and reprogramming them. Working on the acceptance and the anger, that was a big thing in the healing. I feel like in the beginning stages of healing, there's the bargaining. It's not even I know. It's the stage of grief, the bargaining. What can I do to make this work? And then the anger, and then all the kind of things that come up, like, where did I go wrong? Where did they go wrong? What could I have done differently? Da-da-da-da. But I have it tattooed on my arm. It's a little greater than symbol made with the V, or the VUV V. If not this, something better. Borrow this. Utilize this. I got this on my arm, and my sister got forward on the back of her ear. Because you don't go backwards. If it is meant to be, if the person that you're meant to be with is that person, or what have you, they will meet you again. But if you spend thank you, Cammie, it was good to have you here. If you spend your time lost in the thoughts and the places and the things, and what can I do differently, and how can I go backwards, and how can I reprogram, like, what if I didn't say this, I've done this, take me back, like, all the kind of things. If we spend so much of our time in our past, we're missing out the presence. We're missing out of the potentiality of the presence, of being loved again, of being honored in a different way. Like we often start to when we're in this bargaining phase and the looking back, we're cutting parts of ourselves out. We're looking at our life through this lens of like, oh, let me just cut this part of me away. And it's not to say the self-improvement part isn't important. You guys know that's my fucking jam. Like, my biggest thing I've shared about this after my breakup was my judgment and my high expectations and all these kind of things. And I realized all of this has to do with me and my comfort and my zones and the things of that nature. I'm getting very comfy on this chair right here. And moving through these things. But if we're looking at our life through the lens of I want to do better in the future, that means we're looking at through what went right, what went wrong, what do I want to do differently. But it doesn't come from a space of, oh, if I do this differently, then I can get that person back. We can't change the past. We can just learn from it, right? And you can set yourself free from that by accepting the fact that you didn't know better. And because you didn't know better, you couldn't do better. But now you know better, so you can do better in the next one. So if you still aren't over your ex and you're still not over that certain circumstance, that's okay, but can you accept what happened? Can you work on accepting that and dismantling the ties from the past that you are bringing in? Because the walls that you're building up out of protection are the walls that are keeping you isolated. They're blocking your blessings, right? And if we're stuck in the past and we're wondering, oh, if I could have just done this differently, you didn't know. You did not know. Julia! So is there a way that you can sit there and you can give yourself the grace and the understanding, and then start to look at Vivian, oh my god, everyone's coming on, and start to look at life through a lens of I didn't know, and the next time someone comes into my vortex, and the next time I am blessed to be walking with someone, I'm gonna do better. I see this with the sexy man. The sexy man you guys see on my internet feed. I see a lot of the things that I learned from previous partner, right, from Elvis. I am, wanting to control these things, wanting to see these things, having my nervous system activate, all these kind of things. But really, because I've done the work on accepting the fact that, whatever, I now can do the work and not project that onto him. Because the biggest thing about moving on with a healing heart, because the thing is you don't have to have a completely healed heart and all the kind of, I definitely do not have a completely healed heart. But I have a healed life, and my body is always learning. Like I said, I feel heavy with this eclipse season and all the kind of things. Does that mean I am not healing? Does that mean I shouldn't be dating anyone? Absolutely the fuck not. But I get to learn and grow and move through these things. But to know that the biggest lesson is don't carry your baggage into your next fucking relationship. Don't do that. Bring conscious conversation. When we come into a context of a new relationship, when we realize when we haven't accepted something and we haven't released our anger, which is a big, big part of healing your heart and moving through things, if we haven't done that yet, we're having conversations like, well, in my last relationship, they did this, so you have to do this. Well, last time this happened, this is what they did. Like, how many times have you said that in your relationship? That's not healing anything. And this is how trauma is stored, and this is how we repeat patterns, and this is how the same relationship problems keep coming up. Because what you're healing on your, like, if you haven't healed it on your own, it'll come up in relationship, and the healing work that you're doing right now, as glorious as it is, it will come up in your relationship again. You'll just quantum leap because you have the tools. hence sacred singlehood. Like, shameless plug. But as you're moving these things, you're looking at, okay, how can I accept the fact that the past of what I had is the past? I didn't know better, but I am actively doing the things to shift and mold and change that now. Am I having healthy outlets for my anger, for my emotions? Because oftentimes what I see, especially with my ladies in this strong healing world, we do a lot of crying. We do a lot of shadow work and all these kind of things, and wanting to be strong. You don't have to be fucking strong. Actually, get fucking angry. Let yourself express the emotion that's stored in your body that you wanted to express at the time of impact of trauma, because breakups are trauma. Trauma is just a trapped emotion in your body at the end of the day, right? So it's not just a traumatic event that we often think of, like domestic violence or war or things of that nature. It's just a trapped emotion in your body. So how can you work on releasing that? That's what that is. Can you accept? Can you release? Can you accept? Can you release? Can you accept? Can you release? Again and again and again. The core of, again, the science. And then moving into the forgiveness. And I don't necessarily mean the forgiveness of another, although that is very important because we end up carrying the anger with ourselves and all the kind of stuff. I mean the forgiveness of self. For the self-abandoning, for the codependency you didn't know was there and you only saw after the breakup, for the ways that you didn't listen to your intuition in the beginning and you sugar-coated those red flags, for the ways that you maybe disassociated from your friends and family, for the ways that you didn't take care of your body, for the ways that you stopped with your boundaries because you wanted to be chosen instead of focusing on choosing, and then you just forgot about your personal boundaries and your values and your routines. Can you work on forgiving yourself? Because the sooner you start to forgive yourself, the more fun you start to have. The more you realize, like, you can't get this healing heart thing wrong. You really can't. And I can say that till I'm blue in the face, but I want you to feel that in your soul. Like, you really cannot get this wrong. Unless you bypass and just don't do it and hope that your next relationship is going to be the thing that fixes you. Look and take radical ownership over your life. Look at what's being repeated. Look at what's going on. Look at what has been coming up. And not through a lens of fault. Because some of the things we're not at fault for. I'm not at fault for Elvis wanting to be with a Latin woman. I'm not at fault for that. But I'm responsible for how I chose to show up and create a life because of it. Glow up of the season, baby. But not in a revenge way. In a, ooh, I prayed for this. Let me take the initiation God gave me right now. Who do I want to be? Because also, here's another thing. I started to look at the relationship I wanted, and like, he just couldn't match that. I'll say he's bad, good, anything like that. It's just different. I wanted this, I remember I was sitting there and I was like, I want this life, I want this pathway, I want to understand, and I should have had this conversation with him prior to a relationship of my value and what my life dream is for the next 5 to 10 years, but they didn't align. And when I was like, I feel it alive in my soul, and this I want to create an iconic brand, I want to make multi-millions of dollars, I want to speak on stages around the globe, I want sold out events, I want da-da-da-da, I can't wait, do you want this too? And he said, no, I want a simple house and a simple life. That didn't work. But we do this thing where we think we can change people, and they just don't know yet, let me shake them alive and wake them up. Like, no. And again, the self-abandoning, right? I'll just be a little quieter and do the kind of things so that they'll choose me and all the kind of stuff. And it's like, no. We accept it and we move on and we look at our life and really looking at, oh, that version of me dulled the shine. She was quiet because the partner didn't want it. So, oh my God, let me make sure I become the fullest expression of myself so that I get to share that with another when they come. I didn't know I'd move on that fast. I didn't know my intention wasn't to meet sexy man. I was just teaching becoming that bitch, and was on my single girl summer travels for like a month and some change. And I was like, all right, let me go practice what I preach. And who knows where that's going. But it feels really good to fall in your heart. Suze. It feels really good to let that be known, right? To make it sacred, to realize that life is what I shared today. To be sacred is the living your life as if it's like an exquisite art. And showing up as such, even in the pain, even in the times. Like, how can you surprise people in the way that you navigate this? How can you surprise yourself in the way that you show up for this and what comes for you and what gets to be known of you when you do this? Like, how can that be the story that you tell? How can that be the thing that shifts and molds and changes in this lifetime? And how can you have fun while you do it? Because although it's relationship work, although it's trauma and... Sorry, this is bothering me that the eye contact is not correct. The trauma and the things, like, we make it seem like we have to go back to our origin story so much, and it has to be the shame spiral, and it has to be, I can't have fun, and I have to cut off men, and I have to not have sex, and I have to do all this kind of stuff. And for some people, yeah, for sure. But for others, for my people, it's how do we re-enter the flow and joy of life again without putting fucking rules on yet another thing. There's enough rules. How to do business, how to spend money, how to invest your money, how to do social media, how to speak to people, how to... I'm so fucking over it. I'm so fucking over it. I'm ready to walk in a way where it's not about a 5-step fucking formula. It's about, how do I fall back and trust in conversation with self? How do I make this moment sacred? Not in a way of like rah-rah, woo-woo, whatever sacred. But like actually the moment in time that I find and activate my voice and I learn how to trust myself again and set healthy boundaries and not worry so much about the abandonment and the rejection, but really, really get so solid in my values and my standards that no matter what, I'm okay. No matter fucking what. And in that process, I quantum leap my healing heart, because you find your way home. In the process of doing that, how could you not heal your heart? Because all of the relationship stuff, all the things that have been breaking your heart over the last years and the things that you've been lost in and all that kind of stuff, all they've done is pull you further away of your true self. Feeling like, oh, if I'm just too much, or I can't be seen, or if I won't be chosen, so let me people please all over the place and do the thing that women are gloriously, admired for. And instead actually take that sacred in-between pause going, ooh, I am so ready to find my way back home to myself. Not in a way that's like looking for red flags and putting myself on a pedestal, but like really shifting this shit and understanding and becoming my own best friend and becoming a living and walking, living sanctuary, so that, like, my biggest mission is that everyone that comes into contact with my clients, myself included, leaves a better person. Leaves more joyful and delightful and in love with themselves, even if it doesn't last a lifetime. That moment in time, it gave permission to others to be themselves. And I hope that's what you get from my content. I hope that's what you get inside my programs or my masterclass or whatever it is, wherever you tap into the podcast, like all the things. I hope that's what you get. That you leave feeling like another person, and then you go and you gift that to someone else. Because I truly believe that's how we change the world. That's the domino effect of this world, is that if we leave it in a better place than when we entered the room, instead of coming in being self-serving of what am I going to get to this, it's what can I give? What can I give by being? How can I model what I want instead of mirroring the self-protection mechanisms and these coping mechanisms and these red flag scanning things? Like, this is the thing about women. When we get a broken heart, we stop utilizing that feminine essence of ourselves. We stop embodying this beauty that we have, the trust, the open, the like true feminine, receiving feminine energy. We step into this woundedness of, I got it my own, I'm going to scan for red flags, I'm going to do it my way, I'm going to do it like, and then we wonder why modern dating is such a space of like mama boys and emasculated men. Like, it starts with us. And if you want to quantum leap your healing heart, like, that is truly the behind the scenes things, is how can you tap back into your feminine energy? How can you tap back into your trust with self and understanding, and get back into conversation with your body from a science perspective and a soul? And so I feel like that's where I want to leave you and love you today in this. I've really enjoyed being here with you all. Like I said, Sacred Singlehood starts in middle of November. Our early bird ends in 3 hours. So if you're interested in joining, that is $777. It is originally priced at $1,111. We have extended payment plans available. So anyone that is wanting to get in the room, but you want to have a conversation about financial stuff, all you have to do is lead yourself to the conversation. That is the biggest growth portal. We set things up. We don't want to dysregulate your nervous system in the process, but get your fucking ass in the rooms that light you up. Go, do, and then be. Stop thinking TikTok or social media or things of that nature is the thing that's going to change. Like, that's not how it works. Unfortunately, if it did, we would have a very better world we're living in. But yet, because of social media and the internet and all the kind of things, we live in a more lonely world than we ever have. Why do you think that is? Because everyone thinks that all this free stuff is how we actually change. But if we're not getting in the arenas and the things that scare us and investing in ourselves, like, who do we really think is going to do that? So lead yourself to the conversation. You guys know I don't hard sell. I don't do any of that. I trust all of your timing. And I don't ever think that there's no way that you couldn't do it on your own. But my work and my life and all the kind of things is for the woman that is ready to really quantum leap this. That's the whole essence of this little riff right now, the behind the scenes of quantum leaping your healing heart. And because I get so many questions about this in my DMs, in my personal life and all the kind of things, the way you quantum leap is you get in the arena. You do the scary thing. You act as your healed self, as that future version of self, right? Like, that's literally what I did for my 30th birthday. I claimed 7 figures for my birthday. This is outside of dating, but I claimed 7 figures for my birthday for this lap around the sun. So I celebrated my birthday as though it's 7 figures. Stayed at the 5-star resort, had the whole thing, had the private driver, had the restaurants experience, did the whole thing. My best friend planned this whole thing, was driving around the car that I planned to buy. Like, it's not that I'm just telling you guys this stuff. Like, I am living this in every capacity, and I'm telling you, the way you quantum leap into anything is you do it. You fucking do it. You don't just think about it. You don't just whatever. It's not just sitting there and going, let me just write my affirmations. And someday, even though I never leave my apartment, my Prince Charming will come. And I don't mean to mock you, but I know one too many women that's what they're doing. Or, let me write my affirmations, and somehow my relationship with my family will all be better, and they're going to get over all their bullshit, and they're going to see from my perspective, and da-da-da-da. It's like, I'm all for affirmations, but we have to act as that version of ourselves before we become it. That's it. There's my $1 million formula. We have to make decisions from that spot. And I get you, it's scary. That's why even when it was $97, I was terrified. I've dropped $43,000 in this last month on self-development, which is also why this round of Sacred Singlehood is going to be fucking banging, because the rooms that I'm in, because when you work with me, you work with the thought leaders as well. Like, I am at the table with the greats, and you get that in my arena. That's my fucking promise. I will always be doing this work, and I will always continue to invest to become the better teacher in this. And so I'm here to have a conversation. This program has changed my life, has changed everyone that's gone through it, whether it was, their relationship, they were coming out of a breakup, they wanted to heal, and they were going through a divorce and they wanted to heal, they found out their partner were cheating and they wanted to heal, or financial distress and all the kind of debt that their partner put them. I get it. There's people that have been through sexual trauma and they wanted sexual liberation. I get it. Same. There's women that just wanted to up level as a mother and a wife, so we did that. There was women that were in their 70s and they wanted to reawaken who they were. Like, this program is so multidimensional. The women that have gone through this, they've gone on to create their own businesses. Like, that wasn't even the intention, but they found themselves again. And so when we have these blocks and these things, it's like, how can we let ourselves be surprised by doing the thing that's scary? What if this is actually the thing that works? that changes everything that you've been wanting to change. And it's not another fucking investing program or another fucking coaching thing and da-da-da. It's actually finding the sacredness within the in between and finding your way back home and regulating your nervous system in a way so that you cultivate safety and understanding. What if? And so I invite you. We start middle of November. Come join us. Price increases in 3 hours. There's going to be bonuses and things, and I don't know when or high level what's going to happen next year, because we're shifting a lot of things around as we enter, but this is the last time that we're running it for 2022. So get your booty in the room. There's never a more potent time in our life to jump in this. Like, every iteration of this program has been fucking revolutionary, and this, hands down, is the time you're going to want to jump in and quantum leap your healing heart and get all the juiciness of the back end of all these kind of things, because it's time. It's time to heal your heart. It's time to heal your patterns. It's time to step into this portal. It's time to revolutionize the way that you connect with others and connect with yourself, to feel good in your skin, to feel good around others, for speaking your boundaries, of activating your voice, of standing in your power and your truth, and opening up your heart, and all the kind of things, and breaking down these walls that once left you protected, and actually finding the sacredness of falling on your heart again, whether that's with a partner, whether that's with your current partner, or whether that's just with your friendship circle and your community and your network. So this is your invitation. I love you, and I will share this with someone. If this landed with you and you felt the pull and all the kind of things and you're feeling it lit up, share this with someone. Okay? That's my only request. I love you, and happy healing. I'll see you in the next one.